welcome to 28 Days and Beyond.
Show where we talk about our history, our heritage, and our culture.
I'm Amari.
Charisma, welcome. Hello, Amari.
Yeah. What's going on, Charisma? How you doing?
I'm doing well. What are we getting into today?
Something that I know you care deeply about. You often
Uh,
talk about the documentary that I have not watched. I have no intention of watching, about the story of Khalif Browder. Tell us a little bit about how that leads into what we're talking about today.
Ava DuVernay directed 13th a while ago. I forget how many years ago, but it's about the 13th Amendment and the loopholes basically in the legal system that allow for certain things to happen to people once they are in the legal system, once they're arrested, once they're in jail, once they're locked up. And Khalif Browder, who was a main focal point of this documentary, was arrested for stealing a backpack. There wasn't sufficient evidence of whether or not he stole the backpack or not, but because his family could not afford to pay bail, he was sent away to Rikers for 2 years. He was put into
Mhm.
solitary confinement for a large amount of the time that he was there, which resulted in him sustaining a number of mental health issues, and he ended up taking his life as a direct result. So yes, that is something that I'm very, very passionate about, and I'm looking forward to getting into this conversation about bail today to see what we can do to change some of the things that are already in place. So please introduce our guest.
Certainly. So we're joined today by Maurice John Houston, who is an attorney in Philadelphia, and we'll be diving into this and so much more. So, Maurice, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for
Thank you for
joining
having
us.
me.
Welcome.
And thank you again for
Welcome,
having me
welcome.
this evening.
Our pleasure.
So let's get right
Well, I
into it.
know.
I mean, there's there's been a lot of talk about prison reform,
Yeah.
and some people are focusing very specifically on a sort of immediate issue that pertains particularly to our community, and that is bail reform. Can you tell us a little bit about
Mhm.
bail and its initial intent, what it's supposed to be, as well as how it's often used in a detrimental way to members of our communities?
So, when we think about bail, we think about the purpose of bail. And the purpose of bail is to ensure that the accused, the defendant, will show up for trial. That's one of the reasons why we have bail. It's not to keep someone in prison for an extended period of time. It shouldn't be used as um, a, a pre-punishment. That's what I'm going to call it. Is some punishing someone before they've actually gone to trial. Uh, Alternatives to cash bail, you can be on a bracelet monitoring system. There's a
Mhm.
possibility they may put you into some type of halfway house. We also have releasing individuals on their own recognizances. So they're all alternatives to cash bail, but we have to be careful that we're not imposing bail as ways to keep individuals who are only accused at this particular point. They have not been convicted of a crime. They've only been accused at this point. We have to ensure that they're still having access to the system. So bail
So
sometimes. Go ahead.
no, I don't want to interrupt because I'm just like I'm listening to what you're saying and I'm like trying so hard not to jump in.
Right. No, no.
Sorry.
Jump in. Jump in. It's okay.
Well, I was thinking, with how long so many people have been looking at our system as it stands and looking at the fact that bail in a lot of ways is used as a pre-punishment because when people are not wealthy and don't have access to certain means, they do often sit even if they are innocent of a crime. So I'm just wondering, as a person that's not directly involved in the legal system, how we've been able to go this long knowing that this is happening so rampantly without enacting any kind of bail reform or change.
Well, we're starting to see that there are calls for bail reform, but keep in mind the individuals that are sitting and have not been convicted of a crime on a cash bail that they're not able to afford, more likely than not, they're going to be low income individuals, individuals
Right.
from Black and Brown communities. Those are the folks that you're going to see sitting with relatively what some in society would consider to be something that is affordable. But the
Mhm.
thing that we have to keep in mind is that when it comes to bail, if you don't have any money, if you are low income, bail needs to be reasonable.
Right.
Ultimately, that's what we're looking for with bail. The amount that is set, if it is a cash bail, it has to be reasonable. And reasonable
Right.
really depends on your financial circumstances.
Right. It's
It's
relative.
it's really it's a financial circumstances.
Yeah.
One of the things that has always bothered me about this system, so we can talk about, the reasonableness of the amount that bail is set at, as well as the treatment of bail as a pre-punishment. I mentioned
Right.
earlier offline that I worked for a short period of time on Rikers Island with, you know, adolescents. Basically, they were under 18, and I was shocked at how many of them had been there for 9 months, for 12 months, for 15 months before even
Mhm.
going to trial. Rikers is a jail, right? They're awaiting trial. They couldn't afford bail, and they end up spending, a year and a half in jail before they even see a judge, which I think is very much what happened with Khalif Browder.
With
Um,
yeah.
what are some of the discussions happening with regards to bail reform and prison reform that seem, I hate to say it this way, but seem plausible in terms of, sort of making some sort of wage of change.
So, one of the things that we have to think about when it comes to prison reform, we have to think about the disproportionate minority confinement in the
Mhm.
prison system. It starts well before that individual is standing before the bar of the court. I think one of the things that we have to be serious about is public education. It's important that we invest in public education prior to that individual coming before the bar of the court. Just listening to your story, you're referencing individuals who are still young, 17, 18, 19. Uh, that means they're almost right out of high school had they gone through the high school system. But that's a serious concern that we have to think about is whether or not these individuals are receiving the social services that they need, that we can identify if they need these types of services prior to them coming to the court system, and then asking the court system to do the social services that should have occurred well before them actually coming before the court. We have to start to think seriously about the images that young men see, especially young men, black and brown individuals. Think about what they see as far as television is concerned and what role the media has played in getting them to this particular point. And what I mean by that is when you think about the 80s and the 90s, and we heard a lot about rap music and what rap music was doing to young men and young women in the mindset there. But now we have 24-hour internet services available to some of these individuals. You can go on your phone and see things about people of color that we know is just not true. We have to start and think about the images that are being put before our children and how that plays a role in their development.
In addition to, addressing some of these things that we're looking at socially in terms of, what our young people are being exposed to, what can we do just from the outside looking in to address this notion of it not really being innocent until proven guilty, but really being the opposite, guilty until you can provide the money?
So, and that is important. And that's one of the reasons why I'm running for the Court of Common Pleas in the city of Philadelphia. I think it is important that we have diversity on the bench because if you want me to believe in the system and trust the system, then I need to see folks in the system that look like me. I need to
Right.
see that judges are people of color. I need to see that prosecutors are people of color. I need to see that defense attorneys are people of color. I don't need to come into a courtroom and the only thing that I see that's black and brown is someone's shoes.
It's a very fair point.
Maurice, we thank you so much for joining us. And I mean, I feel like we barely even scratched the surface, but
I
where can
know.
people learn more about you and your campaign, and just reach out if they have any questions or want to offer their support?
Well, right now, I'm doing outreach. We're up on the internet. I can send you the web link, and just look for me. I'm around the city of Philadelphia. I'm walking the streets. I'm out in the community, and I'm out here talking to voters.
That's awesome. Well, Maurice, thank you so
Man,
much
thank you so
again for
much.
taking the time to speak with us and sharing your perspective.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure.
Good
This
night.
has been another episode of 28 Days and Beyond.
The show where we talk about our history, our heritage, and our culture. We'll see you next time.